I'm excited today because we're talking about something that has been absolutely transformational in my own life. In fact, when I think of the last year or two of my life, it's what we're talking about today specifically that has really helped me understand everything. And when I say everything, what I really mean is everything. It's one of the, and so if you hear me kind of over promising on something, and then in half an hour or so, you're like, hold on, all of that, and he said it would change everything, then I want you to sit on it, and I want you to think through this about what it is that we're talking about today and why this thing is of such great consequence. Last week, we kicked off this brand new series called Wiser, and we started with the book of Job. And we started with that because it kind of lays the foundation for wisdom. That even when I don't know what's happening, I will still choose to trust you, is kind of how last week ended. But if you're not familiar with the story of Job, or maybe you are, but you need a little refresher, maybe you know it like the back of your hand, that's all fine. I'm going to give it to you anyway. Job, this guy that has it all, until he doesn't. And then once he loses everything, he's kind of put into the throes of, how do I live in a world where bad things can happen to anybody? And his friends sit there, and at first they're helpful, but then pretty quick they're not. They start quoting the Bible at him, which I can tell you as a pastor is the easiest thing to do to somebody who is struggling with something. I can also tell you as somebody who has had the Bible quoted at me to people that it's often unhelpful to just say, well, be anxious for nothing, Austin, but in everything with prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving. Let your requests be made known to God. Just do it. What's the big problem? It's the Bible. And you look at that and you hear people kind of give these platitudes. And again, we talked about that a little bit last week. That's what Job's friends start doing to him. They say, you got unrepented sin. You got all this stuff going on. But there's this big difference between knowing what the Bible says and what the Bible means. Jesus wrestled with people all the time about this exact issue. They called them the Pharisees. They knew what the Bible said. Nobody debated the Pharisees on Bible quiz hour, right? Because the Pharisees would just knock them all out of the park. They knew every single verse. They could finish the sentences in the Hebrew, everything. They were brilliant in their own way. They knew what the Bible said. But Jesus constantly is saying, hey, you say this, and we all agree, yes, that's from the law, that is Torah, okay. But now here, I want you to understand what it means. This thing over here means that woman over there. It means that guy laying by the side of the road. It means all of this other stuff. He says there's a gap between what the Bible says and what the Bible means. And if you're going to understand what the Bible means, it's going to come first and foremost through looking to Jesus. And it's going to come, even when we go through the book of Job, through looking to Jesus and asking questions in the same way that Jesus asked these questions. So, if you're somebody who has ever gone through a difficult time in life, maybe a time of uncertainty, a period where you're not sure what's going on, maybe you went through a health struggle or the loss of somebody that you deeply cared about, and it just hit you extra hard for one reason or another, and you ask that question, why? It's a fine question, but you probably noticed you didn't get a really firm answer. And when we look to Job, the answer that Job gives us is kind of a non-answer. It's that response of, here's Job saying to God, I think I just need to keep my mouth shut. I think I need to just sit back and let you do what you do, God. And I'm going to keep doing what I do. And I'm not going to give up on, desire for meaning and truth and purpose. But I'm going to trust that you're at work. And so we hear that, and it sounds nice and convenient. Oh, just trust God. Let go and let God. Which is true, but also not helpful when you're in the midst of it. So what we're going to talk about today is how. How we let go, let God, how we kind of dump off the Hobby Lobby theology of, just everything happens for a reason. And we start to actually engage our faith and to say, you know what, this isn't good, this isn't right, this is actually evil things that are happening to me or to them or around the world right now, because if you haven't looked recently, there's a lot happening. Whether it's Texas with the flooding, whether it's Gaza, whether it's Ukraine, the rumblings in Iran, or wherever else you look, I'm going to tell you, that's not news. Like, that kind of stuff has been happening for all of time. So the question is, how do we live in a place like that? How do we mourn well? How do we adapt to all this? So that's the setup for this. And we're going to do this with a special friend of mine, a guy named Doug Lake. Would you guys give Doug a warm Chaparral welcome? Welcome, Doug.
Yeah, thanks.
Whoops. Doug has been around the block a time or two, I believe, if you can't tell by the lack of hair.
Thank you. Thanks for
drawing
drawing
to start
attention.
off any interview. No, Doug, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, why you're here in the first place, qualified to talk about this?
Oh man, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. I have looked forward to this weekend for quite some time, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with you today. Whenever somebody asks you, like, tell us about yourself, first of all, you go into what you do for life and all of that. But I've been working on myself this stability of the identity that I have in God. And it's definitely foundational for all of us who know Jesus. But I think it's a progressive work as well. So first and foremost, I'm a son. And I play a lot of different roles in my life. And one of the most important roles is my role as a husband. My wife, Melissa, for 30 plus years. We have 5 children. We have 2 by birth. We have 1 by adoption. We have 2 by marriage, which is an amazing thing. The last 2 or 3 years, we've brought in 2 daughters, and they're amazing. I am now a grandpa, which has been like 10 out of 10, by the way. I highly recommend it for any of you out there interested in those of you who are grandparents. Thanks for welcoming me to the club. Appreciate it. So for work, I've been in the church for years. In fact, I'm a 4th generation minister, which I love my heritage, and there's a lot to that. But for 20 years, I've been a staff pastor, different churches, and care pastor, small groups, all the different roles in that. And for the last 2 years, I actually started a nonprofit organization. It's New Day Counseling and Consulting. And what I do is I guide leaders in loss. And I do that through emotional, relational, and spiritual direction. And what's hard is we need to continue to build our capacity for life, but because of the losses, it weighs us down. And we just need sometimes just support from someone that is not like in it with us.
Yeah.
And so I've been kind of helping navigate leaders through that, and hopefully strengthening their soul in the process.
Guide leaders through loss. That's heavy.
It is.
And if you've been in leadership in any capacity, whether you're flipping burgers over at McDonald's or leading at a Fortune 500 company, I'm going to guess that when you say that phrase, that's something that kind of resonates, right? For many of us, that when you're in charge and when you're doing stuff, even if it's just your house with your kids, that there is a sense of loss, there's a sense of weight that you carry with you. And so, as Christians, we have our own faith, and often what we do, I think, in our faith is we say, okay, faith is here, it's good, it's happy, I show up to church, I want the songs to be upbeat and smiles on faces and all that stuff. And then there's the bad stuff that we keep over here.
It's our happy place.
Yeah, it's true. I've been a pastor for 20-something years now, and when I first started, back in 2004, they called the style of worship Happy Clappy. Happy Clappy.
Okay.
That was what the pastor called it. He wanted the worship to be Happy Clappy.
Wow.
Who wants to go to Happy Clappy? Like, that's wild to me, man. I don't know. Maybe if that's your jam, I'm sorry, you're just not going to get it here. But again, Happy Clappy, go for it. But anyway, in our faith, we have trouble integrating these two things.
Yeah.
Of pain and loss on one side and our actual faith over there. What do you see people often do when they're dealing with their own pain, their own loss, their own frustration?
Yeah. Man, what I've experienced personally is first and foremost is we isolate. Whenever we experience some kind of pain, and just trying to, because pain brings disorientation in our life. And I think before we decide of what we do with that, typically, I think identifying some of the pain that we're experiencing, like there's relational pain and conflict with people that we love, and even people now online that we don't even know we're in conflict with. And so that relational pain is very, very real, and there's emotional pain as well. And one of the things I've noticed about emotional pain is it's typically because we don't understand what we're experiencing. We don't understand the emotions underneath the surface, and man, I just don't want to feel this, And so that's kind of where the emotional pain comes from, because maybe we've been taught that certain emotions aren't okay to express. Sadness, anger, those kinds of things, frustrations. We deal with that on our own, and then we can come out and enjoy life and other people. Of course, physical pain. Illness has a way, and ailments, disease has a way to really set us back. And I know a couple of weeks ago, when Kelly shared her testimony, it was really a powerful moment for us to see someone navigate through physical pain and see the Lord at work in their life. Then there's spiritual pain. And that's really difficult, especially when we experience pain within the church, the place that's supposed to be our happy place, our safe place. But there's a lot of abuse that takes place. Spiritual bypassing is a word that, like kind of what you were saying, we throw a verse of scripture at somebody, and
Spiritual bypassing?
yeah,
I like
yeah, and try to wrap this really complicated and nuanced maybe pain and experience that people are going through, and we just want people to be okay. That's ultimately what I experience is, if I see someone that I love and I care about, and they're expressing these deep emotions and painful things, I want the pain to stop for them. So I'm going to do everything I can to, like, hey, look on the bright side, and here's a silver lining, and there's a time for that. There's a time for that. But I think in the church, we've not been able to be a safe place for people because many of us, me included, haven't dealt with our own pain. And it comes up. It comes up in different ways, and comes out sideways, in our relationship conflicts. So we go back to relational pain, right? When sometimes it can be just the things that we're not dealing with.
Yeah, and so there's something that happens to me, not all the time, but I'll hear here on Sunday mornings or after church or really throughout the week too. Somebody will have a lot of stuff that they're navigating, that they're going through, that they're like, oh man, this happened to me, this happened, then this happened to me, and I'm just, I'm feeling pretty down right now. But you know what? I read the headlines, and so many people got it worse. So it's okay. It's just, not like, what would you say?
Minimize it?
Yeah. Like how do you, when we live in a world where, again, like I don't know about you guys, but the flooding in Texas is very fresh right now, and the disorientation that's happening there, and the uncertainty and all that's going on. So then we show up, and it's like, oh yeah, I bit off my kid's head on the drive into church, or something else. But it's just, that's nothing compared to what I know is going on out there. What would you say to somebody that's kind of thinking through it in that lens?
Yeah, that's a difficult thing. I've done that as well. Minimize our own issues that we're dealing with, and it's really relative. It really is. Like, my ability to handle what I'm experiencing is it's me. Mm-hmm. You have your own ability to handle things, and I feel like again, there's not a lot of compassion towards ourselves when we go through really hard and difficult things. And it can be really hard because we can give it out, but the truth is we need to be able to receive it from others. I mean, Scripture says in 2 Corinthians 1 that we are comforted And one of the reasons why we receive comfort is so that we can comfort others. But if I've never been comforted in my pain, how can I truly support another person? And so I think allowing ourselves to be honest about where we are, and again, the minimizing thing is just really, really difficult to break through, because honestly, there's a value that each of us have. And I think a lot of times when I've been in a place of not honoring my pain, because I'm devaluing myself.
Wow. So the having healthy, and this is why it's so important too. Like again, this is how things start to fall into place. It's understanding yourself first.
Yeah.
Why you're responding in particular ways. Like even as we talk about Job, you know, there's reasons why he's responding in the narrative the ways that he is, and there's reasons why his friends are responding the way that they are. Why they're giving him, you know, what we now say is, yeah, that's bad advice. Like
Right.
don't go that way. And that's the foundation of even just being able to get through pain.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
just starting with yourself.
It's hard because we don't like discomfort. We avoid it at all costs, and it's one of the reasons why we don't want to turn towards it, because what good is it going to do? And I think many times if we grew up in a system or an environment that didn't have the capabilities to learn how to deal with pain appropriately, it can feel like just overwhelming to face it. And we avoid, though, so much through distractions. We avoid through pain relief and just trying to seek some kind of relief in some kind of way. We do that through pleasure seeking, self-soothing in inappropriate ways. And then there's a fourth way of avoidance that I've seen is delusion or denial in some ways. And see, these are protective measures.
Yeah.
We're protecting ourselves because we just want to have this internal safety.
So you just went through four things.
Yeah.
I don't have any issues with any of those four things, by the way, but for them, could you maybe spell, like, give us an example of
Sure.
each one of those four? Like, what would
Sure.
something be that people are actually doing?
Okay, so distractions. First distraction is typically, most people in the room would be our phone, right? We go to our phone
You guys
because
answer that quick.
yeah,
That's good.
yeah. And are looking at the news of some sort. Like if I can just see what else is going on outside of my world. We distract ourselves many times through the stuff we watch on TV and those kinds of things. Sports and distractions can be work, can be good things. It can be working out excessively. Those can be really good distractions. And again, this is what's hard is we look at like the things that we use to avoid as bad things. And the last couple 2 or 3 years, I've been trying to rethink a lot of things. And that's what repentance is, right? To change the way we think so we can behave in a different way. And one of the things I'm rethinking is the things that we use to kind of ease our pain, they do sometimes produce bad things in us. But again, it's about trying to create safety within our systems. But if it's not working, it's not working. So the distractions, again, it's a way that we avoid pushing things off. The next thing that I said was pain relieving. And this is like, maybe you've heard the word of sedation. Alcohol and drugs and also different ways that we soothe our pain in some way. This is, put your drug of choice. And again, it can be our phone as well, as we talked about. Pleasure-seeking, self-soothing things. I think it kind of goes without saying. And then the denial delusion. It's interesting because I was listening to an interview with a grief expert just this last week. And one of the things he said, it kind of hit me in the face, but this guy has worked with Kubler-Ross for years. His name's David Kessler. And he wrote a book about this. You've heard the stages of grief, but he wrote a book called The Sixth Stage of Grief, Finding Meaning. Because we're meaning-making machines, and we want to like figure all of this out. What does this mean to me that I'm going through this? And one of the things he said about denial is he said denial is actually a gift because it eases the ability. Let me see. He says there's a grace in denial. He said if we allowed ourselves to feel all of the pain of our losses in all at once, can you even imagine that? That would just overwhelm us, and that's not a good thing. We'd be on the floor and never get up. So there is a grace in denying, but at some point we need to turn towards and begin to face it.
Yeah, at some point, it's okay to kind of have something on the back burner or in the closet or in the dark or whatever, but
For
you
sure.
do have to put the light on it at some point.
We have to, and I think that's where we find God in all of this. And that's again what the biggest desire is. Where are you, God, in the midst of my pain? Where are you when I'm praying and it doesn't seem like it's happening? I've experienced this the last couple of years. My dad passed away in September of last year. Just an incredible man who loved Jesus, who served God, who was a pastor, who ministered to people, who had faith that God was a healer. And we to his dying breath, he was, like believing God for healing. And how he passed and all of that was really difficult for me because I was hoping that God would take him. And he ended up being in a coma for 82 hours. And in that 82 hours, I wrestled with God. I was angry at God, and until I finally surrendered. And he was gracious in it. I found him in it, and he spoke to me and kind of gave me comfort in it. And so I think we find God in the discomfort of our lives, and that's a place that I think we would be unexpected to see him there.
We find God in the discomfort of our lives. I like what you said there too. You were angry with God.
Yeah.
So kind of shifting into conversation about practices, things that we can do. And again, practices, a lot of times we think, especially when you come to church, I'm supposed to read my Bible and pray. And well, I don't know enough Bible, or I'm not good enough at praying, or we always come up with some sort of excuses to try to get ourselves off the hook one way or the other for these things. But the reality is that they're just practices.
Yeah.
You show up to practice, and if you miss that ground ball, guess what? Coach is going to hit another one right at you. You just got to get ready.
Right.
Keep your head in the game, kind of a thing. And when it comes to our faith,
Yeah.
I like to think of it in that way of, okay, hey, today you're going to continue practicing. Now, practicing for what? I don't know. Probably death at this point. But really, you're practicing for life so that when you find yourself in a situation where you're like, what do I do here? Where you don't know, like what you're describing with your dad there, you have some resources. You have a toolbox that you can draw on there. What are some practices that you would say were helpful for you?
Yeah.
And then, as we kind of start building this out, for the whole church, and of course, we're all different here, but generally speaking, what are some things that we can start to develop in our own lives that will help us grow through the pain, not without avoiding it?
Sure. Well, for me, there's a quote that I read several years ago that has really shifted my thinking, especially with regard to mental health, but how I deal with everything in my life. And M. Scott Peck wrote this, and he said, the essence of mental health is to deal with reality at all costs. The essence of mental health is to deal with reality. So we started there. And again, for those of us who know the Lord and who follow the Lord, his word is truth, and there's some actual things that are happening in our life that we have to embrace at all costs, the reality of what is happening and what is. And Scripture encourages us to take our pain to him. In Psalm 119, it says, the comfort in my affliction is that you are with me, and your promise, it gives me life. The comfort in my affliction. So God is there comforting us when we are afflicted. But he also encourages us to take our pain to other people, carry each other's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ, which is his love. And we get to carry each other, the burdens that we all carry, to be there for each other and be the safe places for people. So some of the practices is dealing with reality, taking it to the Lord, taking it to other people that are safe for us. Because, again, the people that you take it to and they Hobby Lobby you, okay, there's other people who won't Hobby Lobby you out there with some kind of
Cheap answers.
Cheap answer,
Yeah, for expensive problems.
Totally. So I think allowing ourselves to take it first to God and then take it to other people is just a super important part. We need two things when we're in crisis. The first thing we need support. And support can come in a lot of different ways. It can come in a small group of church. It can come in an AA. That's a great support group. It can come in a lot of different ways. So finding support is a valuable thing because we also need structure. And when your life is disoriented, and you remember back in the pandemic about 5 years ago, how life was completely disoriented? What did we do? We begin to restructure our lives, but we also needed the support. So both of those really go hand in hand. And so finding the ways that I can restructure my life in and around what's happening, that's going to give me life. And maybe it's a small little tweak in your morning routine. Maybe it's showing up on a regular basis to a group that you maybe wouldn't have showed up to. Those little small things really do add up to big things. And over time, that's where growth happens.
Yeah. And there's people often sitting in this room with you now, or maybe they're out of town on 4th of July vacation, that as a church, this is what we're trying to be. And when I say we're trying to be that, I mean we will always be trying to be that, because I don't think at any point any church is perfect at this kind of a thing.
Right.
But when we are creating environments where we can continue to get connected, that's huge. So you got some things that you can, a little handout thing.
Yeah.
To us.
So let me give you some more practical tips.
Give that to me and then take it the other way.
Yeah. So what's interesting is learning how to navigate our losses is really something that we haven't all grown up with. And so there are some tools out there, and I have some tools on my website. I think there's a screenshot of all this. But before we get to that one tool, I've been learning a lot about joy. Because in the midst of our sorrow and pain and grief, guess what? There's joys as well. I had a grandson be born, and man, that changed my perspective on life in an incredible way in the midst of some of the pain that I was going through. And so, it's not just the big things, though. It's little things. And I'm part of a group online. There's a book out there called The Joy Reset. And it's neuroscience, kind of nerdy stuff. But one of the things that the overarching theme of this book is that in the midst of the hard things that we're going through and the uncertainty of life, there's these glimmers of joy that we can connect to. And when we allow ourselves to feel the joy of those moments, even 7 to 10 seconds, it rewires our brain and our new neural pathway away from stress and anxiety and towards resilience. So if I'm in stress and anxiety, I have a hard time feeling joy. And guess what? If I'm feeling joy, I can have a hard time feeling stress and anxiety. So allowing ourselves to feel it. And let me give you a tiny little joy. For me, just recently, that first bite of a watermelon, come on. Is there anything better than that when it's like the perfect watermelon? Just to let it, wow, it's great. I wake up in the morning, I go and take my dog in the backyard, and I look up at my mimosa tree, and I try to find the hummingbirds up there. Because what a wonder of nature that hummingbirds are. So I see them up there, and I just take them in, watch them do their thing. Like, that is amazing. Hearing a child laugh, right? That, if we can tap into that, it brings joy to our heart. Maybe it's going to a restaurant and coloring with the things that are there and seeing the creation happen. Whatever it is for you, finding those little glimmers of joy and connecting to them and then sharing them with someone. When I share the joy that I have and experience throughout the day, guess what? I get to relive it again. And someone else gets to. So it can be this perpetuating thing, and we're not just stuck in the doom and gloom, but they both can exist at the same time. And that's the joy of integrating our life. It's a whole life that we want to experience. And so if I'm just focused on the pain, the sorrow, and all of that, that is not living whole. And if I'm just focused on Pollyanna and everything's good and everything's awesome, that is not good either. So I need to hold the tension of life in that capacity.
That's huge.
Yeah. I didn't even tell you about the last, I know we got 2 minutes, right?
8 minutes.
Okay. So the other thing that we were actually one of the reasons why we're here is to share you with this tool that I came across several months ago, and I've been putting this into practice. And he was telling me kind of what we were doing with this message, and I'm like, I have a really cool tool for this. And in the Psalms, 1/3 of the Psalms are laments. It's over 50 Psalms that talk about our pain and our struggle. Psalm 4 and Psalm 6, Psalm 13, Psalm 58, Psalm 88. Psalm 88 is an interesting one because it's the only one that doesn't have this turn up towards God. It's just despair. And so if you're feeling despair, read Psalm 88. You'll be in really good company.
Better than Taylor Swift, right?
So it ends with, darkness is my only friend. Yeah, that's kind of how that one ends. But in this exercise, one of the things that I was just thinking of, because you can get some hope in connecting to the Psalms. And so this exercise is writing your own psalm to God. And
real quick, if you guys, there's a QR code right there. Noel already told you about it, and you all ignored it. So if you scan the QR code, there's a download link for this right there. And Doug is going to just kind of
just go over super quick over it. But basically, there's no right or wrong way to do this. And for those of you who love the structure and order, there's step 1, step 2, step 3. But the whole idea is we are connecting with an honest confession to God. And so the first step is addressing God in a humble fashion. So whether it's, oh Lord, my God, or maybe it's my light and my salvation. I did this just the other day and I couldn't sleep. And so I started doing a psalm in my head. I was sitting and I said, oh God of my rest, come close to my anxious heart. I'm having trouble sleeping.
Yeah.
And I know your presence is near me. Come close to me. And so anyway, addressing God personally is really important. Second one is to tell him what you're experiencing. Tell him what you're experiencing. The third one is just humbly ask for what you need. Come and help me. Don't forget me. How long, oh God, is a phrase that David used a lot, especially in the laments. Be merciful. Show me mercy, oh God. I've used that prayer a lot. And then the last step is to reorient your heart if you're able to. And God, I will still trust you. I don't understand this uncertainty of my life. I don't understand the loss, the pain, but I'm going to trust you. You're trustworthy. You're my refuge, even now. I believe I will see your goodness. I believe I will see your goodness. And this allows us a place and a space to really get honest with ourselves and to get honest with God. And I think that's where healing can begin.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And that's we're going to leave that on our little QR code thing there. It's also the link that's in our Instagram profile, I know too. So we're going to have that there for the whole duration of this series, which will take us through the beginning of August as well. So feel free to bookmark it or just set a reminder or something to check that out later. And the reality of this is that what you get out of so many things is what you put into it.
Yeah.
So when you are whether you're going through something difficult today or not, this is good work to begin to do now, so that you can grow resilient and stronger. And when that moment comes where you do need to go into your tool bag and access the ability to grieve, which is hard. It's really difficult, right? To learn how to grieve because we're not often taught this stuff. You'll have some tools in the box. And my hope and prayer for you too is that you'll have a community as well. If people want to get connected with you, where do they go?
They go to my website at meetthedemands.com.
Meetthedemands.com. Are you on Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, New Day Leadership Consulting or D Lake 108.
D Lake, Doug Lake, look for the shiny head and click the profile pic and go from there. Guys, would you give Doug a round of applause? Thank you, Doug. Jesus said that he came that we may have life and have it to the full. And when you read the Bible, when you understand, when you even see Jesus' life lived out, you see that a full life is not a life void of pain, void of uncertainty, or a life that just skates through everything unscathed. Rather, a life lived to the full, sometimes, like in Jesus' case, leads you to the cross. And so we know that we expect that things will happen, and they will continue to happen to every single one of us, and that's okay. We stay rooted, we stay grounded, we know our identity and where we find it. And like I shared last week in the story about Alice, the things of life that help you to stay rooted and grounded don't just pop into your heart and into your mind like that. This is through days, this is through weeks, it's through years of practicing this, of learning to pray. Like I love how Doug just shared about the prayer before bed. You're having trouble falling asleep, that's a beautiful thing, because this is just the life that Jesus invites us into. It's a life with God. And that's what we see Job concluding at the end as well. So what we just had is a conversation about this. What I know is that a conversation is a conversation. These are the things that make up our very lives 24/7 until the day we die. So having a conversation is just a starter for many people. For those of us that are still looking to grow and still live in this way, then we know that these are the conversations that need to continue. And this is where you have to be able to ask both yourself, the people to your right, to your left, front, back, hey, how you doing? And then be able to prepare yourself to have a real answer. Man, I'm struggling. I've been praying and it just doesn't feel like I'm breaking through. That's great. That's actually okay. That's normal even. So now what do you do with them? Are we going to just sit back and quote verses? No. Rather, we're going to ask questions like, okay, well, how could I help you? You want to just go out to lunch sometime? What's it look like to just put yourself out there in that kind of a way, to be present with one another? Because that's the most helpful thing we can do, is have the gift of one another's full presence. So that's my prayer for you this week, that as you go from here, your mission, you got some homework, you got a little PDF you can download and all that, so go for it. Your mission is to look to your right, look to your left in life. The people at the office, sometimes the people on the road, the people that God has trusted you to be around. And to ask that question, how can I be a person of peace for them? How can I cultivate that in my own life? Because trust me, when you take these things seriously, you grow and you get better at the things that matter most in life. And when you get better, everyone around you gets better. So if you want to know what wisdom looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, This is the journey that we're on. It's to take that step today. So as you go and do that, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Thank you guys so much for being here this July 4th weekend. Right after church, we got, right now, we got Starting Point there in the back. If you are newer to Chaparral, would like to know a little bit more about who we are, what we're about, just come back. We'd like to say hi, chat you up for 5 or 10 minutes, and answer any questions you guys might have. We'll see you next week.